eyes on me, the better. That's how you get followers, baby. What you mean?
I'm just kidding. My name would just be too long. That's why I give you crap about your Twitter handle.
I got to keep it.
But coming up at 11:45, fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth. We will do Fun in the 40s at 11:45. Right now, though,
yes,
it is a pleasure to be joined by the one, the only Jason Aponte. Says on, he lists his accolades way later in his bio. He's got a bunch of other stuff. What is a PFWA member, Jason? By the way, welcome to the program. Sorry for that bumpy introduction.
No problem, guys. It's good to be here. Pro Football Writers of America. I recently just got added in with a bunch of people that I've always looked up to. So that's pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Writes for Niners Nation, and check out the podcast. It is on Twitter at Sprint Right Pod. You can follow him at Jason Aponte 2103. What is 2103? Is that when you started the account? I'm a very inquisitive person. Forgive me.
No. So 21 is a very big number in my household for Roberto Clemente, and then 3 is my favorite number. So 2103 was just something I've kind of run with. It gives burner vibes, but I just have run with it too long, and I don't think I can change it yet.
No. I like it.
I like it. Yeah.
And you know what? Shout out that Clemente is big in your family. I had a childhood friend whose father loved that guy, and I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, when he does, obviously people hold him in a high regard, but man, his story and what coulda, shoulda, woulda been obviously ended tragically. But when it comes to this week, Jason, and am I being wrong here? Am I being silly in thinking that this is going to be a cakewalk for the Niners? I know Shanahan came out and said that the Cardinals should be 3-0, and they've obviously been competitive in all the games that they've played, including coming back and beating Dallas, which was a big upset. But do you see this being a closer game? Because the people in Nevada see it as a 2-touchdown game.
I think when you look at the schedule and you go through the opponents and you see the Arizona Cardinals and you say, well, no Kyler Murray, we don't know who's going to be starting. At that point, you probably thought it was Colt McCoy. And then you hear it's Josh Dobbs. You say, yeah, you know what? The 49ers should. But I do want to warn against the whole cakewalk thing. I think, when you watch Arizona, be competitive in all these games, they absolutely had a chance to win all of them. Obviously, you can kind of make the comparison to the 2017 49ers, in which they lost a lot of games, but they were in a lot of games, which kind of told you that they were on the cusp of doing something. And everybody kind of had it in their mind that Arizona's going to tank. They want Caleb Williams. But for me, it shows that they're kind of changing the culture. But I will tell you that the 49ers are not overlooking this game. Kyle Shanahan has got a bone to pick with Jonathan Gannon a little bit. And I think that if he's as petty as I believe he is, this game is not going to fall by the wayside for the 49ers, no matter who's on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, though, Jason, that the Niners dealing with some injury issues, unfortunately, going into week 4? Deebo Samuel's got that rib and knee thing. Jawan Jennings, got that shin thing. Do you think that the Niners, I guess, Achilles heel in this game would kind of be, their own demise of injuries?
Maybe. I mean, again, that's the stuff in the NFL that you can't really account for when you start the schedule, right? When you look at teams and you say, well, that's a win. Well, what if you have an impact player that's out? What if it was an offensive lineman, things like that? I think the 49ers have such a bevy of playmakers that they will be able to get by. I think what you kind of saw on Thursday was that Brandon Ayuk's a lot more important than people realize. We're all excited for Brandon Ayuk, and obviously he's a fantastic wide receiver, but the separation that he gets on his own was kind of lost in that game. And the Giants understood, if we blitz as much as we can and we press, Deebo Samuel's a fantastic player as well, but he doesn't create the separation on routes the way that Brandon Ayuk does. Now you're looking at a situation where Brandon Ayuk seems like he's up. It might be Deebo Samuel down. I think Brandon Ayuk is going to be, having himself a fine game. Kittle's still there. They have Christian McCaffrey, and as long as Brock Purdy is upright and healthy, and they're putting up 30 points, I think they should be fine. And I don't think that they can get by in this game without Deebo Samuel or Jawan Jennings, especially with Ronnie Bell's emergence.
Jason Aponte joins us, Zachariah and Emil right here at SacTown Sports 1140. Jason, I know it's early. We're only 3 weeks in, but I kind of thought that there were going to be other NFC teams that could possibly emerge to be the biggest threat to the Niners. I think now it's the Eagles. I think both the Eagles and the Niners have not played great and both find themselves being undefeated. But just to relate it to the Cardinals' opponent last week, how much did that Diggs injury knock down the Cowboys in terms of them being a potential threat to the Niners?
I mean, obviously, when you lose a player of that caliber on either side of the ball, it's going to knock you down. But I think what last game highlighted is that the Cowboys are still a little bit soft against the run, and the Cardinals just beat them up, on the offensive line. And I think that's a little bit more worrisome than Trevon Diggs not being there. I mean, if Joshua Dobbs was throwing it around the yard the entire time, I'd say, oh, wow, they've got a big problem. Other teams will be able to, go at the other cornerbacks that they have. But I think what the concern that highlights, that was highlighted more in that game was that the fact that Cowboys were still so soft against the run, and James Conner was doing what he wanted. And even Rondell Moore took a long play out of the backfield for a touchdown. So the Trevon Diggs thing is not going to be easy for them to overcome, and other teams will be able to exploit those matchups. But in a game where you weren't getting the ball thrown on you, to have it run over and over in that fashion, I think it speaks more about the run defense that has me a little bit more concerned about the Cowboys than anything.
Yeah, and going back to the Niners, their biggest weakness over the years has been, throws over the top. Especially in the secondary, getting beat on long plays. Everything else underneath has been pretty good, but they've been having a hard time with that. Do you feel like the Niners have kind of solved that problem under Steve Wilkes, and they're not going to let a guy like Hollywood Brown or Rondell Moore break out for a big gain down the field like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure that this would be the game where we would see any sort of cracks in that. I think when you go against different personnel and again, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, maybe if the Philadelphia Eagles haven't figured out in week 13, maybe a matchup with the Detroit Lions, who are looking very good on offense and have a bunch of playmakers as well too. Maybe we'll see something like that. But I don't think that the Steelers were equipped to attack the 49ers downfield. I don't think the Rams necessarily were, especially without Cooper Kupp. And I don't think the Giants were either. So it's fair to say that we don't know. Now, there is speed for Arizona, but with the way that Dobbs and this offense operates, I don't think this is going to be the week that you see it. So I think it's undetermined at this point. Like, we don't know, but Steve Wilkes is a defensive back guy. You got to understand that he's probably going to try to figure it out as best he can. But I don't think that we'd be able to find anything in this game towards that, especially with Arizona's game plan.
Does the organization, the coaching staff, the players, but more importantly you, because all of those first three that I listed off are going to say nothing but high praise for Purdy, but do you feel better about Brock after 3 weeks than you did from last year? The same, or a little bit more concerned?
Actually, I feel better. And I think it's less about the stats and more about the command and the calm that he brings. Even early in that Thursday game when they were blitzing him and he was making some questionable throws, it never, ever feels like it's getting away from him. And I don't want to talk bad about the other quarterbacks that have been here or anybody else, but it felt like one play would, cascade into another and all of a sudden start sliding away. It never feels like that with Brock Purdy. Now, how does that have to do with the playmakers? Does it have to do with Kyle Shanahan? I think a lot of it has to do with, one, we've wiped away all of the concerns with injury. And now, two, you're watching a young man who is overcoming bad games and they're still putting up 30 points. He still hasn't played his best game, I believe. And this offense hasn't played their best game. I think that's what really should have people excited more than anything.
Yeah, Brock's been talking about that a lot. Kind of we got the sour taste in his mouth, how he didn't, make all the plays that could. They keep missing opportunities. What, I guess, would be the biggest potential for this Niners offense? Is it scoring 40 points, 50? Like what do you see it being, Jason?
That's absolutely what it is. I mean, when you're talking about a game in the Rams where he's missed throws that probably put them up and put that game away, and early in the Giants game, you see them working through things. It's really about the adjustments that they make later on. And for me, it's about what this offense can do when they're all at full strength. Week one's a weird week for that because everybody plays, but not everybody's involved and up to speed. George Kittle's barely up to speed. This team particularly peaks at the end of the year, almost every year under Kyle Shanahan. So that's when you'll start to see the fruits of the labor. And I think that you're going to start to see 35, 37 points put up regularly against opponents that they should. And then obviously against tougher opponents, especially in the postseason, when you get down to the nitty gritty, you'll see them be able to make enough plays. I don't expect them to run through in the playoffs and score 30 points. I think that's a bit of a overstatement to think that that's possible. But when they're faced against teams that they should be able to, because they've been doing it without playing their best game and they've been doing it without all of their players. So I don't think there's any reason to think that this won't grow and that there's a little bit meat left on the bone.
Any truth to the rumor, Jason, that after the surgery and that arm injury, that now his arm is even stronger, so he doesn't know how? That's why he's making those overthrows, because the arm's even better, Jason. Any truth to that rumor?
You know what? Shout out to Henry Rowan Gardner. I sure hope so. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. That's a little rookie of the year comment for everybody. I think that a little bit of the deep throw is just timing more than anything, and just touch. As much as it is the arm strength, it's still a little bit of touch, and it's still him working his way back. But being able to see him put the ball that far down the field, that's got to be a good sight. I don't know if there's any truth to the rumor, but I'd sure like to hope so.
Yeah, I don't think there is any truth to that rumor. I think, frankly, the overthrows were a better look than anything. If there was one thing to highlight, though, defensively that the Niners need to improve on, what would you think that'd be, Jason? In the secondary, on the defensive line, in the back? Like, where do you think it is?
It's really hard to nitpick this defense at this point, especially when they're giving up only 14 points per game over 3 games. It's really hard, right? They're not giving up any deep plays. They were incredible in Pittsburgh. The Rams game was a little bit choppy in the beginning, but I think you have to chalk that up to the fact that Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford are still very good at their jobs, and they had a very good game plan for a little while, and they knew how to attack early on, and the 49ers adjusted. I don't know if there's anything that's really a concern. I don't think it's necessarily the corner. I guess the secondary would be a concern based on depth. That would be the only thing. If there's an injury to Diamador Lenore, if there's an injury to Charvarius Ward, then you're looking at Ambry Thomas. You might have to, go to guys that don't have as much experience as those guys. So it wouldn't be necessarily the players that are there. It would be any sort of injury. And I think that goes for any side of the ball. I think what you have to look at with this defense is how they're generating pressure and who's generating the pressure. I mean, if you would have told me in week 3 that we'd be talking about Javon Kinlaw having 10 pressures and 10 quarterback hurries right now with this team, I think that would be, it's an incredible development at this point, because now you can keep guys off the field, keep them fresh, and you can send for it. You don't have to blitz. I think all of these things and the depth that they've been able to build right now mask anything that they have on the back end, if there was anything. As of right now, everything looks good for 3 weeks, but obviously, we know things change with injuries and the way that people play. But as of right now, I don't have anything that I'm necessarily concerned. There's no doomsday scenario right now for this team after 3 weeks.
On our way out, and my apologies for busting you out, but I am proudly turning 40 this year. How old are you? Because that Rookie of the Year reference means that you've got to be around my age.
I'm turning 39 in November.
There you go. See, I got a bunch of 20-year-olds over here, Jason. They don't even know what that movie is, man. So I appreciate you coming around and making me not feel so old. Jason Aponte, check out his work, Niners Nation. Also, check out the fantastic pod, Sprint Right Pod, on Twitter at Jason Aponte 2103. Appreciate you, Jason. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the weekend as well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
there you
Jason.
go. Great guest, man.
Yeah,
Get
awesome.
that guy on more often.
He's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Coming up.